Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another Baldur's Gate 3 character building guide. Hope you're all doing well. Today, we're covering one of the hardest to kill characters in all of Baldur's Gate 3, a build I'm calling the Immortal Dodge Tank. This character reduces incoming damage by a staggering amount, and effectively gains hundreds of HP every single round of combat for free, meaning that it's almost impossible to kill under any normal circumstance. You also get incredible utility for your party, output decent damage, and can provide a lot of different roles because this character is almost entirely item independent, so it'll fit just excellently into any party. This build is somewhat similar to a build I did several months ago called the Immortal Tank, but even harder to kill, updated for Honor Mode, as well as removing the item dependency from that build, so it's just going to be incredibly difficult to remove from the battlefield, incredibly sustainable, and works very well no matter your circumstance or party composition. Alright, let's get to the build. We're using Karlach as the example character here because this is primarily a barbarian build, but I think it could fit very well for Lae'zel, Minsk, or even for Stallion and still be reasonably on flavor. And of course, if you want to use this for a main character, this build is almost completely independent of what race you select, but as usual, since this is a defensive build, you can gain some benefits by being a halfling to prevent you from failing saving throws by rerolling ones, gnome to gain advantage on important saving throws, or Wood Elf just for additional mobility. We're starting with a level of Barbarian, because although we are going to be multi-classing with this build, we want access to the medium armor and shield proficiency that you get for starting with Barbarian, and we also want the increased starting hit points. Barbarian gets 12 hit points at first level and 7 every subsequent level, because the first level that you take has the most impact on your hit points, and this build will be multiplying our hit points so significantly because we're reducing incoming damage by so much. Every hit point we get is many times more valuable than the number that you see on the face of it. So even little bits of additional health increase our survivability dramatically. If you were to compare this to, for example, starting with Rogue, we're giving up 4 hit points if we start with Rogue, and those 4 hit points are going to be multiplied effectively by times 2 or times 4 or times 8, depending on exactly what effects we have applied. And so that increases our survivability in combat by an enormous amount, especially at early levels. For our ability score selection, we're going to go with a pretty unusual ability split for barbarians. This is going to be a dexterity-based build, which is part of what makes it so item independent and fits so easily into any party. And of course, gives it high initiative and lets it use some of the most powerful weapons and armor in the game as well. So we're going to take 17 dexterity, 16 constitution to maximize our hit points as much as possible, and 15 wisdom to make sure that we aren't stopped by wisdom targeting effects. Basically, the only thing that can actually hurt this character are things that attack you through not doing hit point damage, because any incoming damage we can pretty freely ignore. So the only thing we're really worried about is things like stuns or paralysis or fear that can shut down your character in a way other than actually killing them, because this character basically can't be killed, so we're going to want as high a wisdom save as possible. For our skill selection, you are going to want to take perception, because this character gets perception. Pretty much every character that gets access to perception should take it. It just helps your party out significantly. And then you have a couple options for your secondary skill. I'm going to recommend putting this in intimidation, because even with our negative charisma, the unique barbarian intimidation options have very low checks that you have to make, so you can make them even with negative charisma. And if you want this character to be your party face, you could also go for the less greedy attribute split of 16, 16, 14, and then put 12 in charisma, and make this character actually pretty good at passing some dialogue checks. So you have some flexibility here if you want this to be your main character. No other choices to make at level 1, so let's move on to level 2. At level 2, we're going to immediately deviate out of Barbarian and select a level of Rogue. This gives us a lot of utility and skill selection, but also gives us quite a bit of additional damage, especially in the early game. Even 1d6 of sneak attack damage will be very easy to apply for this character. You can always have advantage thanks to Barbarian's reckless attack feature, which we'll get next level, so you're going to be getting the sneak attack damage every round, basically guaranteed. And even 1d6 of sneak attack damage can really add up over the course of long fights. Unlike almost every other build in Baldur's Gate 3, this character doesn't mind if fights go long. You are more or less unkillable, you ignore incoming damage, so long fights are good for you. You don't care if fights go long. Of course, you can end them quickly as well, but what enemies do just doesn't matter. So you will get value out of your sneak attack dice over the course of long combats in a way that other characters won't, thanks to the inherent survivability of this character. We also get to add proficiency in one skill and expertise in two skills, and I recommend taking proficiency in sleight of hand and expertise in sleight of hand. Since this is a dexterity-based character, you benefit very strongly from being able to pick locks, so this character can handle that for your party, and then you can put your second expertise pretty much anywhere. You can put it in intimidation if you're using this as your party face, or in perception just to guarantee that you can find the traps so that you can then sleight of hand them. This character is one of the very few in the game that gets to have both excellent perception and excellent sleight of hand and be totally independent when it comes to finding and disabling traps. So that's something that is pretty fun and unique about this character. But of course, even better intimidate so you can yell people into submission is excellent as well. As an alternative option, even with your low strength, you could put expertise into athletics. Since this is a dex character, you can often sneak up on enemies, and you get advantage on shoves when you're hidden, or of course if they're facing the other direction. So with expertise in athletics, even with low strength, you can still easily shove enemies, so that's another potential option for this character, but this is my recommended skill selection. Rogue doesn't have to make any other choices at level 2 though, so let's go on to level 3. And at character level 3, we're going back into Barbarian, where we get access to Danger Sense, which sounds really good for a trap disarming character, but unfortunately is still bugged in Baldur's Gate, so it doesn't actually do anything. Danger Sense has currently no effect at all in Baldur's Gate 3, but also Reckless Attack, which lets you apply sneak attacks very easily and also hit your attacks. You also, of course, don't care if you're getting attacked on this character. Even at this level, your Barbarian Rage prevents non-magical damage, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing non-magical damage. You have resistance to, and you have very high hit points, so you don't care if you're getting attacked, but at later levels, we'll get even more resistant to that damage. Reckless Attack, giving enemies advantage, can trick the AI into attacking this character, even when they can't actually hurt you, so it's a very useful tool for manipulating enemy aggro, very important to how this build actually plays out. At character level 4, we're going to take our third level of Barbarian, and get access to our Barbarian subclass, which, given that this is a tanking build, to no one's particular surprise, I imagine, is going to be Wildheart Barbarian, for the Bear Totem Barbarian's Bear Heart Rage. Bear Heart Rage gives us resistance to all damage, except for psychic damage. So when we are raging, we're taking half damage from every enemy in the game, with some exceptions. We can even gain resistance to psychic damage from other sources, like items later on in the game. That means that our 43 hit points are effectively 86 hit points. Enemies have to do 86 points of damage before they bring us down. Every point of healing that we receive from an ally or by drinking a potion, which we can do with a bonus action, every round of combat if we want, is doubled. So we're going to be receiving an enormous amount of effective hit points from every point of healing, because all of our hit points that we get are effectively doubled by our Bear Heart Barbarian Rage. So already we're extremely tanky. Most enemies can't do 86 points of damage in an encounter at this stage of the game, and it only gets stronger from here. In difficult encounters, you can heal, and that will keep your character up, even in the most terrible circumstances. At level 5, we're taking our fourth Barbarian level and getting access to our first feat, and of course for our feat we're just going to take an ability improvement and even out these odd numbers. Going up to 18 Dexterity means that we have +4 to our initiative, so we're likely to go first in most combats at this point. We're extremely likely to win initiative, which is very important for a tank, because you really want to position yourself where enemies have to pay attention to you, so going first is critical for this character, as it is for every character, but especially so for tanking builds, because where you're positioned on the field matters so much when enemies take their turns. And we also get to even out our wisdom, giving us a pretty respectable wisdom save at this stage, and preventing enemies from just locking us down and ignoring us that way. No other changes though, so we're going to move on to character level 6, and take our 5th level of Barbarian to gain fast movement and extra attack. 10 feet of additional movement speed is hugely helpful for this character, of course, because we want to be right up in enemies' faces, so they have to pay attention to us. Same as going first, mobility is king for this character, so it's very important that we have more of it. Barbarian inherently gets more, so it synergizes with what we're trying to do already, and of course extra attack just doubles our outgoing damage. You can use this character either with a weapon and shield or 2 weapons, and both are very effective. And you will probably, unlike most characters, actually switch your gear depending on the encounter that you're facing. I'll talk about that a little more when we get to the itemization section, but extra attack, of course, will let us just double our damage, apply our rage damage multiple times in a turn, which is very powerful, because anytime you're applying flat damage more often, you're getting more benefits from it. So extra attack, I don't really need to sing the praises of this feature, but one of the things that's sort of important about tanking in Dungeons & Dragons is there aren't aggro mechanics exactly. There are very few ways to force an enemy to attack you. So one way to force an enemy to attack you is just to output good damage. And that way the enemies are sort of stuck in a bad between a rock and a hard place. Either they attack your tank, in which case they're wasting their turns doing nothing, or they don't, and then the tank just kills them. So having good damage on a tanking character is very important for making it a real threat that enemies have to pay attention to, and that's why we go for extra attack as quickly as we can get it. At level 7, we're going to take our 6th level of Barbarian, because this gives us an animal aspect, as well as even more hit points, and the animal aspect that we're going to select is going to be the Stallion. Aspect of the beast Stallion gives you dashing, grants you temporary hit points equal to twice your Barbarian level. Currently, we have 6 Barbarian levels, so that's 12 temporary hit points. Now, importantly, this does not need to be activated during combat. It works just fine outside of combat. So by taking Aspect of the Beast Stallion, even though we don't usually want to dash during combat, because that costs us our action, we can start every combat with 12 temporary hit points, which I've already talked about how every hit point we get is multiplied drastically by the defensive capabilities of this build, is incredibly valuable and keeps us alive, so it turns our 73 hit points into 85 already, meaning that our character is even tougher to kill. But of course, we're not getting this just for plus 12 hit points. That would be decent, but we definitely want to be doing better than that. So let's go to level 8 and make that even more exciting, when we can take our 2nd level of Rogue, and now we can dash as a bonus action. This means that every turn of combat, if we've taken any damage at all, we can dash to refresh our temporary hit points from the Stallion, meaning that we will have a minimum of 12 temporary hit points at the start of every single turn. That is an incredibly powerful effect, giving us tons of free healing. Any damage that we have taken, we can heal through any items like the Ring of Regeneration or healing from a party member. We won't be able to drink potions because that requires a bonus action, but we can always, if we're in a desperate situation, use our action to throw a potion at ourselves. If we've taken a whole bunch of damage and need to get back up to full hit points immediately, you can throw a potion as an action. But this just gives us every single turn, we get 12 temporary hit points, making this character have infinite free hit points, all of which it's taking half damage whenever it takes damage, so you can consistently refresh your health to levels that make it impossible for enemies to kill you. But of course, we don't want to stop there, so let's move on to level 9, where, at level 9, we get to take our Rogue subclass. Now, there's actually 2 different options that we could take for our Rogue subclass. The natural choice, and the one that I'm going to recommend here, is Thief Rogue, because the additional bonus action lets us dash and then still use our bonus action for something else. So we can dash, gain our temporary hit points from dashing, and use our bonus action for something else, such as drinking a potion if we've taken any damage, shoving an enemy if there's one in a good position to shove. Not that we're great at shoving with low strength, but we can, if we took strength athletics expertise, we can still shove enemies pretty well. or any of the many bonus action effects that are available through items or weapon actions. You can also use your bonus action to rage and dash in the same turn, although since you will start combat having dashed, you just always want to dash at least once outside of combat with this character so that you carry your temporary hit points into the beginning of combat. That's less important, but it's still incredibly helpful to be able to use our thief action. This also lets us make multiple offhand attacks if we're using two weapons, so one possible setup for this character is to use two light weapons and make multiple offhand attacks. Those offhand attacks are pretty good because they can apply our sneak attack that if we missed with our main hand attack, and they still get the full benefits of our rage damage, so they're continuing to do decent damage and can make this character output pretty consistent damage while also being incredibly difficult to kill. Another option is that we could take Arcane Trickster if we wanted to be even harder to kill. Thief is a little better for utility and offense, but Arcane Trickster gives us the shield spell from the expanded spell list, which weirdly can be cast while raging in Baldur's Gate 3, and can make our character even harder to hit. This can raise our AC into the mid-30s after we add some items, meaning that we will be almost impossible to actually hit, and also give you Long Strider as some utility. So either of these are viable options, but I think that Thief Rogue's utility and power is just too high for this build, so I'm going to recommend that you take that. At level 10, we're going to take our 4th rogue level to get our 2nd feat, and we're just going to go ahead and max out our dexterity. You could take a couple other options here. You could take durable if you really want to lean into the tanking capabilities of this character, or something like mobile could be very useful as well. Difficult terrain not slowing us down when we dash. Well, we're dashing every turn of combat, so that would be pretty nice for gaining a little bit of extra mobility if we're a party that has a lot of difficult terrain usage, but more dexterity is good just for dealing damage, having higher armor class and initiative, so it's what I recommend. Another alternative option is to take Sentinel, because that could allow your character to lock down a specific enemy by getting up in their face, and using Sentinel, you'll want to pair this with increased chance to hit, but remember you're a barbarian, so you have reckless attack. You can hit your attacks pretty regularly. All of those are very strong options available for this character. Even tough could be pretty good, because remember we're multiplying our hit points so much. You could take tough and increase your hit point total to absurd levels, make yourself even harder to kill. I think overall we're going to be best off just boosting our dexterity, but all of those are great options, and you want to customize based on sort of how your party is set up, which of those you want. Then, at Rogue level 5, we get to reduce incoming damage even further, with Uncanny Dodge. This lets us use our reaction, so it does cost our reaction, which is part of why I think that Sentinel is not just a guaranteed pick on this character. It's still nice to have, but we will be using our reaction pretty frequently for Uncanny Dodge, so we won't as often make Sentinel attacks. But it just halves damage from the first attack that you take each turn. In Baldur's Gate, it's a passive feature. You don't get to choose which attack it triggers against, because it doesn't use the reaction menu like every other reaction in the game, for reasons I'm not entirely clear on. You just turn it on and then it works against the first damage that you take in every turn, but it is still a very powerful way to reduce incoming damage. It stacks multiplicatively with resistance to damage, so the half damage that we're taking from Bear Heart Barbarian Rage becomes 1/4 damage against Uncanny Dodge. This raises our effective hit point total from 105 hit points up to 420 hit points, so, light one up for the Barbarian, and makes us almost impossible to kill by almost any enemy in the game. There are very few enemies that do 400 damage within a reasonable number of rounds, and of course, if we are taking any real damage, and of course we're gaining hit points every round of combat from our temporary hit points. Remember, we also have 12 temporary hit points that we're getting refreshed every single round of combat for free, and any real damage that we take to our actual hit point total, we have a second bonus action that we can use to drink a potion to refresh back to full. So there are basically no encounters in the game that can do enough damage to actually bring this character down. Even if you're playing solo, you'll be able to just tank through all incoming damage with ease, because enemies just won't be able to do enough to kill you in one round, and you can heal back up to full very easily. The damage resistances that you apply to incoming damage will just shut down enemy damage massively. While that has brought the full combo of the build online, we do get a 12th level, and our 12th level offers a number of very powerful options. There's a couple different ways we could take this character, a couple different directions we could go. The one that I think is most powerful and smoothest for honor mode, and what I'm going to suggest that you do, is just take your 7th level of Barbarian. This gives us the most hit points, of course, gives us the highest number of actual hit points, and also increases the number of temporary hit points we get from dashing by 2, because it's double our Barbarian level, so we go up to 14 hit points every round of combat, 14 temp HP. We also get the extremely powerful Feral Instinct power, which makes up for the fact that this build only gets 2 feats over the course of its level progression, by giving you effectively the Alert feat, or 3/5 of the Alert feat, and letting you go first in all of the very dangerous late-game combats where it's very important to go first. Entering Rage before a really powerful late-game enemy attacks you is very key for this character's survivability, so winning initiative is very important. Another direction that you could go is, if you want to make this character even tankier, even harder to kill, you could take a level of Cleric for Light Domain Cleric, giving you Warding Flare, and then you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on enemies attacking you once per round. This can make enemies miss a lot of attacks, combined with our very high armor class, because this build will have incredibly high armor class. Warding Flare will make enemies miss. It turns the advantage that you give them from reckless attacking into just a normal attack as well, so that can be very useful if you're reckless attacking frequently, to prevent critical hits and to make enemies miss, so that's a powerful option. I think overall I prefer the Barbarian level, but I did want to mention the Cleric level as a possibility, because you can make your character even harder to hit with that. I think we'd rather just have more hit points and win initiative almost guaranteed though, so we're going to take our 7th level of Barbarian to finish off the build. Alright, this is the Immortal Dodge tank, but let's go ahead and talk about items and general combat strategy. This character operates almost entirely independent of items. There are no specific items required for this character to function, but of course, we can itemize to make ourselves even harder to kill and make sure that we're a potent threat on the battlefield at all times. The first thing that you're going to be looking for is a good finesse weapon. So you need any weapon with the finesse weapon property, so that you can attack with your dexterity, since this is a dexterity-based weapon build. Weapons that increase your critical hit chance, like the Knife of the Undermountain King, are very good for this build. You'll be attacking with advantage very frequently because of reckless attack, and even with only 3d6 of sneak attack, doubling that sneak attack damage with a critical hit still adds to your damage output significantly, so I recommend building some crit chance onto this character. You can also, of course, because we're a dex build, equip a ranged weapon, and a weapon like the Deadshot, if you have no other character that needs it, increases your critical hit chance for your melee attacks as well, and gives you a powerful ranged attack for when you can't get into range, which is very useful as well for barbarians, because if you can't reach an enemy to attack, in melee, you want to attack to make sure that you're maintaining your rage. Since your rage ends if you don't attack or take damage, you need to ensure that you have the ability to attack with a ranged weapon for any time you can't actually get into melee combat. We also want one of the medium armors that has uncapped dexterity, because this character can easily reach some of the highest AC values in the game. With the Armor of Agility and 20 dexterity and just any shield equipped, we have 24 base armor class. Even enemies attacking us with advantage thanks to reckless attack will often struggle to hit that armor class, and of course we can raise it even further with any items like the evasive shoes that increase our armor class more than that. Sometimes, though, you're going to want to cause enemies to target you. So we can also deliberately lower our armor class by using one of the medium armors that caps your dexterity modifier to AC. And in this case, you're going to want probably the adamantine scale mail, which reduces incoming damage by a flat amount. Reducing incoming damage by a flat amount is incredible for this character, because flat damage reductions are applied after the multiplicative damage reductions. So the 1/4 damage that you're taking after Uncanny Dodge and Barbarian damage resistance then has the 1 damage removed. Often this character will be taking damage in increments of like 2 or 3, so you can reduce damage fully by half or a third, again, just from a little bit of damage reduction from the adamantine scale or something like the bone spike garb, anything that provides flat damage reduction. We also just want items that increase our damage. This character will be attacking a lot because we have extra attack. We will probably be offhand attacking in some combats, so anything that adds damage to our melee weapons is pretty good. And you also want to have both a shield and an offhand weapon available, just any light and finesse offhand weapon, because against enemies that are attacking your armor class, you might want a shield to prevent yourself from taking hits and make yourself last longer. Against enemies that don't attack your armor class, some spellcasters have nothing that targets armor class, or you just have enemies you want to kill as quickly as possible. You just want to equip a second weapon to make yourself even faster at killing enemies. Finally, healing is very important to this character, so items like the Ring of Regeneration, that just gives you consistent healing, and of course a good stockpile of potions are extremely valuable for us. With our 2 bonus actions, we can always drink a potion in addition to dashing for extra hit points. Weirdly enough, the Potion of Supreme Healing is actually usually overkill for this character, so you might want to use it for other characters, because it's very rare you'll take more damage than the superior or greater healing potions will heal in a single go, but just having a stockpile of healing potions is good. I also want to mention one item that doesn't work for this character that you might think would, the Boots of Speed. The click heals action doesn't count as dashing, so we still need the rogue levels to dash as a bonus action. You can't replace the rogue levels with the Boots of Speed. Even though this is functionally the same as a dash, it doesn't count as a dash for Stallion, for the Stallion animal aspect, so you won't get temporary hit points off of the Boots of Speed, if you were wondering about that item. For Karlach specifically, soul coins, of course, are great. We're going to be raging a lot, so that increases our damage output quite a bit, and we're often making 4 attacks in a round, so the soul coin damage adds up quite a lot. Before you go into combat, just make certain that you have dashed in order to gain your temporary hit points, and this will just add 14 temporary hit points, giving you a total of 129 hit points before enemies can actually hit you. Finally, one more incredibly powerful trick that you can do with this character is to have an ally cast Warding Bond on them. And if you don't have a character who can cast it, there's a set of rings, the True Love's rings, that let a character cast Warding Bond. While Warding Bond says that you gain resistance, and resistances normally don't stack in Dungeons & Dragons, Warding Bond does stack with other sources of resistance and other sources of damage halving, including Bear Heart Barbarian Rage and including Uncanny Dodge, so it stacks multiplicatively with all of those. And the damage the ally takes is calculated after all of that damage is halved, so allies will be taking very little damage. This can change your damage multiplier, or your incoming damage multiplier, from reducing damage to 1/4 to reducing it to 1/8, effectively multiplying your hit points by 8. With Warding Bond cast on you from an ally, this character needs to take 129 times 8 is a little over 1,000. I think 1,032, I want to say. Check my math in the comments. Damage. Enemies have to do over 1,000 damage before they bring you down, which is a ridiculous amount of damage. Very few enemies are capable of doing that. And of course, these 14 hit points refresh every single round, every time you dash, and any actual damage that you take, you can heal with potions. So with Warding Bond applied to this character, you are effectively invincible to any reasonable circumstance. No matter what amount of damage you're taking, you will be able to ignore it, heal through it, and walk on into the sunset laughing. Alright, my friends, hope that you've enjoyed this video, this look at the Immortal Dodge tank. This character is really fun to play because it's just so funny to ignore what enemies are doing turn after turn after turn, and just heal through it while chipping them down with decent damage every turn. And of course, if you have enjoyed the video, then feel free to leave a comment and like the video. Helps me out with the algorithm, so I appreciate you taking the time to do it. And of course, you can subscribe to my channel for more Baldur's Gate 3 builds and other strategy game analysis. Cheers, my friends. I'll catch you next time.